All right, everybody. Listen up, please. I want to see your eyes up here. Hands off the mice. The AP test has two parts. Each is worth half of your overall score. And let's just back up. On the AP test, you can get a 1, 2, 3, 4, or a 5. So that's not based on the points. Like, there's 40 multiple choice questions, and each one isn't worth 1/10 of a point or something. But they work out the score in the back, and the lowest grade you can get on the AP test is a 1, and the highest grade you can get is a 5. Um, uh, so that's not points based, but that's like your grade. Okay, so the test is made up of two parts. Part one, multiple choice questions, 90 minutes. 40 multiple choice questions. That's 2.25 minutes per question. So we'll talk about that, strategies and how to deal with that another day. And then you get a break where you get to have a snack if you want. I do always buy some cookies and drop them off so that they have something to give you if you don't have your own, but you get a drink of water and go to the bathroom and stuff. And then you sit down for another hour and a half and you do 4 free response questions. And we've been doing these things each unit, like starting in unit 3, we started doing FRQs. And there's 4 of them for 90 minutes, so it's 22 and a half minutes for each one would be a perfect distribution. Like, you don't want to get stuck on one and spend 40 minutes and then not have enough time to do right by the other ones. And you'll be showing up at the library on May 8th at noon. And you'll probably get started by 12:30 or whatever. I mean, you go in there and sit down, and they have to have you fill your name out on all kinds of things, and you'll probably be there till about 4 o'clock. And so you'll miss my class, which is after that afternoon, right, that day, and you'll miss any other class you had after that. You should bring some water and some snacks. That's my advice. Now, from here until the end of the school year, I have a new makeup late work policy, and that's because we're not going to have a bunch of tests anymore. So it's you have 1 week to make up anything you missed. So if you missed something, you got a week to make it up. After that, I'm not going to give you credit. So I'm trying to encourage you to stay current. It's okay to get behind, but catch up on the weekend or a day or two later, because after a week, I'm going to zero it out. And I'm not going to give you credit anymore, because the point is we're trying to get ready for a test. So, you got to do the work and stay with us and as best you can. And I don't want you at the night before the test turning in 20 things, because that's just pointless. So we're also going to have 2 more quizzes that count in the testing quiz category of your grade. So that really has an impact on your grade. I'm calling them focus quizzes. Focus quiz number 1, focus quiz number 2. We'll probably do those in like 2 or 3 weeks. It's I found that nothing makes you pay attention more knowing that there's a test or a quiz coming up. So I'll be sure to let you know what's going to be on it and all that. Questions? All right, so you're going to have access to this slide deck in a minute. And I know you can't read this, so I blew up a bigger picture. There's 5 computer science practices that they're going to test you on: program design and algorithm development. Determine which code segment, what you would write to get a desired output. Code logic, that's reviewing code that's already been written and then saying what it's going to do. Code implementation, that's writing code, that'd be the FRQs, and some of the multiple choice questions. Code testing, like following through code that's on paper and saying, oh, this has got a problem, or telling them where the problem is. And then documentation, describing the behavior and conditions that produce identified results. Talking about the multiple choice section, here's the breakdown of all the categories and then what distribution the questions will cover. So ideally, I'll let you look at this again close up on your screen, but biggest ones, anything over 10%, certainly worth paying attention to more than other things. Boolean expressions and if statements are about 15% of the multiple choice questions. Iteration, that means looping, for loops, enhanced for loops, while loops. That's like 20% of the multiple choice questions, being able to trace code or write code or determine which code is doing the right thing. Arrays, 10 to 15%. A 2D array, up to 10%. Array list, sizable, 7%. 7% of 40 questions is like 2.5 questions. So, there'll be a couple array list questions. Inheritance, 3 or 4 questions on the multiple choice section. Recursion, 2 or 3 questions out of 40. Again, you'll get to look at this. In terms of those practices of coding, they tell you the breakdown. They're not even counting writing code. So they're talking about all the ones that aren't writing code. So program design, development, about a third. Code logic, like saying, you've seen some of these already. Like this code is supposed to do X, Y, Z, and it doesn't. Tell us which is the problem, So anyway, 70%, 70 to 80% of the test is design and algorithm development and logic, following the logic, and 25, 30% is those other things. So questions? Yeah. Oh, it's a good question. I have a class set of books of an awesome book by Charles Petzel, I think is his name, called Code, and it's about how computers work. And so we're going to read chapters of that book in class every day. And we're also going to do some fun coding things. So your grade can be affected by what happens after the class, in that if you don't do the assignments, your grade will just slowly get lower. We're not going to have another test, but we're going to have assignments that you can do or not do, and it'll just lower your grade. But, we're not going to, it's fun. The book's fantastic. I had a student last year go, "Oh my God, Mr. Hayes, I loved it so much. I just went out and bought my own copy because I want to read it forever." I feel the same way about the book. I haven't bought my own copy because I managed to buy a class set for the school. But since I'm retiring after this year, I'm like, oh, darn, I'm going to have to buy my own copy because I can't just take one of the school ones. They'll find out. I'll know in my heart that I did something wrong if I stole it. All right, now we're going to talk about free response. Free response, very, very specific. Check it out. One of the questions, in fact, question 1, will be about methods and control structures. I'll talk about that a little bit more. Another question is you have to write a class completely from start to finish. Another question is going to have to do with arrays and or array lists. And finally, the last question will be about two-dimensional arrays. So we'll practice these tons. I'm going to try to do it evenly, so we do the same number of practice FRQs for each of these sections so you're ready. So you've seen 3 or 4 of each. Remember, you get 90 minutes, so that's 22 minutes per question, when you sit down and try to do them all at once. And we're going to do that one day, one block day. I'm going to have you come in and we're going to do an AP test, FRQ section, the whole thing. We won't even go over it that day because you can't. If you have 90 minutes, we're going to do 90 minutes. That'll be up. I mean, you're probably only realistically going to get 88 minutes that day, but it's going to be okay. I'll see you guys later. This will be posted online along with the review assignments. All right, so this is more detail about what those things are. I don't expect you to be able to read it from here. So I'm going to say that the methods and control structures: write code to create objects of a class and call methods, write code to satisfy method specifications. So this is where they give you a class and they say, write a method that does this, that fits in with that class. We've done a bunch of these FRQs. Free response class, you're going to write a whole new class. Array list, you got to be able to create, traverse, and manipulate elements of a one-dimensional array, a regular array or an array list. And then the 2D array, that's obvious. Okay, so before I assign today's things, which are going to be reviewing, one assignment is reviewing and practicing substring, and the other 3 are array things. I just wanted to review substrings. Remember, there's 2 versions of substring. use it with one number, it starts at that character and goes all the way to the end. I think sometimes you guys forget that. Sometimes you write like substring 3 comma str dot length, like thinking you have to give two numbers. But if you just want from a certain character to the end, just put that character there, that number, and it'll go from there to the end. And then if you want just a piece that's not the end, then you have the start character and one number past the end character. So this 0, 3 would give you the first three characters, character 0, 1, and 2. Anyway, you'll be practicing this in just seconds. Quick review of arrays. Remember, we can make arrays of any variable type for primitive data or reference data. Like you can make an array of students or array of frogs. The size of the array can be found using dot length without parentheses. So here's getting the size of an array. We access elements using square brackets, not dot get. We can use regular for loops or enhanced for loops or while loops. You have to use a regular for loop or a while loop if you want to change the data. Enhanced for loops don't let you change the data in an array. Here's an enhanced for loop example. Here's a regular for loop example. And finally, you can create an array using an array initializer, like that. Or you can create it with default values, like the second line up there. Remember, int double arrays default to 0, and Boolean arrays default to false, and reference or object data arrays default to null. So part of creating an object array is you have to put an object in each spot. So if we were doing frogs, remember, here's 100,000 frogs in an array. I love that you can do that in one line, but it's not really got frogs in it unless you go in to every single one and put a frog there using a for loop. Questions? All right, for the rest of the day, we've got a swap halves REPL, which is a substring assignment, and then we've got 3 array assignments, which all of this is review. You should be on fire in terms of achievement here today. I will get the substring one posted first. Yes. Yes.
How hard would you say, like, your tests are, or like, what percent of students like get a 5 on the test, on the 8 test?
So for the recording, what percent of students get it? A 5. Usually about 2/3 of my students pass 3 or better. And I don't track how many get a 5, but probably 20%. So in a class of ours, like 20 people, maybe 4 or 5 people get a 5. It would be
like being able to get an A on one of your tests or all of your tests correlates to like
yeah, having an A in the class and feeling comfortable when you get a test and not freaked out would tend to correlate with a 5. Although, listen to this, you have to also think about the FRQs that I have never graded. You know, we do in class, you turn them in, and only you know if you've been just like waiting until I put the answers up and then copying it down, or if you've been writing, make-believe code, turning it in. I haven't been reading them because the practice was for you to look at it and see. But I will grade some of them, and so you'll get feedback from me directly. But the FRQs are half of the test. So being told, hey, you got to write a class, and this is what it's supposed to look like when you use it, and then boom, write it. You know, if you can't do that, then you're not going to do well. But remember, we're going to practice a lot. All right, I posted this. I'll walk around and help.